Howdy, y'all. Welcome to The Rainbow Crossing, a podcast where Gen X and Gen Z discuss life's challenges and how we face them as queer people. We have these open conversations to foster a sense of community through different perspectives. My name is Julio Guzman, and with me is my roommate,
Daniel. Hey, Julio.
Hey, Daniel.
How you doing?
Doing good. Just got home not too long ago.
Yeah.
Dog sitting this weekend for these cute pup and this cat.
There's a reason I wore these very special socks today and actually wore shorts for the first time on the podcast so you could see these socks.
And so people could not see your bulge. Anywho.
So
I'm sure that's still presentable to some, maybe. Don't get nervous.
These are Stitch socks.
Yes.
And you and I had a visitor a few days ago who we temporarily named Stitch.
Yes.
It was a French bulldog, right?
Yeah, he was a little Frenchie. My coworker found him out in the street, and my coworker has 2 dogs already, and was like, I really need help finding this dog a place to stay for the night because he didn't want to leave it out. And it was the sweetest little boy ever, and so obedient and kind and cuddly. And
yeah. He was a cutie, and probably not more than like a year.
No, he was young. He wasn't even neutered yet.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That young.
It was that young.
So we temporarily named him Stitch, but we found out later his name was Duke.
Mm-hmm.
I think Stitch was probably a better name.
It fit more, you know. He had that kind of energy, and he looked so cute with.
He did. I'll share a photo because I have a really cute photo of him that I took, but I kind of was enamored with him a little bit.
I know
too.
you were. I was like, we just need to get a dog. I don't know why you're holding off on it too long.
Well, Frenchies particular are so expensive.
They are so expensive.
And this one, he was having trouble breathing. It sounded like
definitely. Especially when he slept with me. At first, he slept on my floor, and then I laid him out like a little bed, and then when in the middle of the night I woke up and he was like on my bed by my feet, and I was like, honestly, you can sleep wherever you want.
Yeah. So we had a little bit of a moral dilemma with this dog because we found out later from your friend, I guess they were on a neighborhood app.
Yes. So the owner's dog didn't even go looking for him until the next following day at like 11.
Yeah.
And the dog was found at like 7 p.m. the night before.
Right.
So like the owner went the whole day without even reaching out or looking for the dog.
Yeah.
And my coworker posted on like their neighborhood app that they found this dog. And another neighbor was like, oh, this dog belongs to so-and-so.
Not even the actual owner.
Not even the owner.
Claimed it.
And then it was like, oh, this dog got out like 6 weeks ago. And I'm like, well, if he gets out again, he's mine.
Well, your coworker presented a question to us like, if I was you, I would just keep the dog because obviously the owner has been negligent, isn't really caring about the dog and the dog's well-being.
I found out he's like 18 or 19, and at that age, you don't need to be living on your own with a pup. And also, he has 2 dogs, apparently.
It's a lot of responsibility. But you and I went back and forth a little bit about it because it is a little bit of a moral question. We don't know this person, and maybe they are not a good dog owner, but the dog does belong to them. Yes. And is it in our capacity to determine that the dog should stay with us versus the other person?
I mean, it fell into our laps. I didn't go out looking for this dog.
No.
The dog found me.
You did. You were manifesting.
I was manifesting. Literally a week ago, I was like, we should just get a dog. Maybe he's like medium-sized dog, has some energy, but will also tone down. And what showed up to our door? That exact dog that I asked for.
This little cutie, yeah. Ultimately, we decided, we shouldn't.
Yeah, I know. I took him to work with me the next day, and he was the best boy ever. Was listening to me, following me around everywhere. My coworkers got along with him very well, and I was so tempted to keep him. But once my coworker's wife came to get the dog, he was leaving, and I was getting so sad. I was like, bye, I'll probably never see you again. And he honestly looked sad, too. He kept looking back at me with those puppy dog eyes, and I was like, just stay with me.
Because you took better care of him probably than the other had in the months that they had been together.
He lived his life in a day and a half or over the night and the morning of.
It was sad, but it called out to me some traits of who you are as an individual. And I think because we both were like, because I was up the next morning getting his food ready.
When I first told you that the dog was coming, your face looked a little like, I just cleaned his house, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh no, he's going to be livid. And right when that dog walked in, you were like, oh, come here, little boy. And I'm like, over here playing games with me. You act like you are gonna be pressed about it, but then once you see the cute little dog, you're like, oh, I guess I'm not mad anymore.
He was really cute, but I think it also speaks to who you are, who we are as individuals.
Yeah.
Which really kind of talks to what today's topic is, and I feel like we stepped up as a man, and
We both kind of want to be parents, so
Yeah.
like any chance to be like, oh, I'll take care of you and
Yeah.
raise you, it's done.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a done deal.
which I think is a great like trait of a true man, and that's what we're talking about
Our
today.
conversation today is what it means to be a man.
Right, exactly, which is such a loaded question.
It is.
Especially
and it's different for everyone.
It is
but
different.
For
And-
most, you kind of know what the quote unquote standards are for a man.
Right. But it's also particularly loaded for the gay community whose
Oh, yeah.
masculinity is often challenged here.
Well, how about we start with where like the first men in our lives up to like when we were born into now, like what are the example of men that have been
Yeah.
parts in our life that have
Yeah.
shaped us or maybe have reflected something we're like, whoa, I kind of don't want to do that. And if that's what it means to be a man,
Right.
I'm out.
Yeah. The logical person for most people is their father
Yeah.
or whatever, whoever the father figure is, whether it's dad, stepdad, a friend of the family. But for me, it was my biological father, who is a bit stoic of a man. You might even say demure. I don't know if you would say that or not.
I'll let you say it.
Okay. By the way, just a side note, Jules LeBron, who is the trans female who really took demure and ran with it, good for her.
Yeah.
And,
And now she can fund her transition, which
That's
is
right.
even more impressive.
know.
Overnight.
I know.
Look at that.
Good for her. But back to fathers, dads, men.
Being demure. Or trying.
Yeah. He was, I would say, more stoic than demure.
There we go.
He was probably a very stereotypical man of I was born in 75, of the 70s and 80s. Born and raised during the 50s and 60s when, you had very defined slots that you put men into and women into. And on the opposite side of that coin, my mom was a very stereotypical 1950s kind of housewife. Leave It to Beaver, which I know you've never seen that, but some of the older audience will know exactly what I'm talking about. So my dad fit into this role of head of household. My mom had opinions, but ultimately his opinion was the one that guided the house. He was also an athletic guy. He had played baseball and softball in high school and afterwards. And there wasn't a lot of emotion that was coming out of him. And so that to me was what a man was initially. It was someone who took care of his house, who paid the bills, who didn't have emotional outbursts, and just kind of guided things in almost a boxed up sort of way. How about you? What was your early?
My dad was never around, and when he was, I was mostly raised by my sisters and my mom, so I was around women all the time. So when it comes to a man being around, that was never there. My dad would come occasionally, and I just thought he hated me for the most part, but my sisters reflected things differently to me as I got older. They were like, no, he would come over and see you being with us, dancing a certain way, putting on our shoes, whatever, and he would try to put masculinity in you, like, you don't do that or whatever, like, would definitely rant to my sisters about me being more flamboyant than masculine.
Yeah.
But he was never there. So what would you expect? I'm around what I'm around, and I am who I am at that point. Like, I don't think there was anything wrong with what I was doing. He found it a little uncomfortable, obviously. But even then, most of the men in my life have never been around, whether it's my uncles or anybody. Every man in my life has been very much not around and has also had multiple kids with different people. And it's very machismo, like, oh, you're not man enough, or how many girlfriends do you have, or this and that. And I'm like, where does any of this come into play in teaching me what a man is to be?
Yeah.
So when it comes to all those things, I kind of just had to figure all of that out on my own, which is even more challenging.
Yeah.
But men, to me, I need to see more qualities, because everything that I expected for a man to be was never presented to me.
Yeah.
Even if it was like, oh, play sports or go do this or that, I had to put myself in all of those things. As I started to become a teen, I did willingly do more things. Like I had a brother-in-law at that point. He was my first brother-in-law, who's still my brother-in-law, and he was into a lot of framework and making furniture and doing tile work and floor work. He was doing everything.
Yeah.
And I would hang out with him sometimes and like do some tile work, and like I put myself in those things, and that's where I didn't feel any pressure to do that. And he was also very welcoming and like honestly guided me through a lot of those things. There would be times where he like injured his hand and I would be taking over the work as like an 11-year-old boy, like figuring these things out. But it was nice. It was nice to like put myself in those things, and those shaped me in a way. Even though those things don't make you a man, it still helped me feel more of a man in my skin.
Yeah.
In regards to the things, and I would still go to my uncle's house. Like my mom would sometimes. This would be more on her end, pushing a little bit more manlier traits onto me. Would definitely be like, oh, go to your uncle's for the weekend and see if you can like hang out with him, because he was a mechanic. So like I would go work in cars and stuff with him, and that would kind of get me feeling a certain way, I guess.
Yeah.
But I never felt like it made me manlier. I
Yeah.
felt like it made me more knowledgeable, more informed about things, but I never felt like
Sure.
doing those things made me feel like a man.
Yeah. And did you have interest in these quote unquote manly hobbies of mechanics and framework?
I don't think so, but I would see the correlation of like, he's a man, I'm a man, like I could do it. You know, like I never saw like, oh, this person seems more manlier than me, I can't step into that field. It's more like, I see a man, I think I'm a man, I'm going to do those things as well.
Yeah. When I was younger, I don't recall a lot of it, but I do remember putting on my mom's heels, but I also put on my dad's shoes too and walked around the house. So it wasn't super odd. But the first like toy that I collected and played with was, I don't know if you're familiar with this franchise, Strawberry Shortcake.
Yes.
I had several of them, and I was probably 7 or so at that time. And then a year or two later, He-Man came out, and then G.I. Joe and Transformers, and my interest shifted in that direction. And I'm a bit surprised looking back on it now that my dad didn't say anything, to me at least, maybe to my mom, about having a girl's toy for a while. And because he's white, so he's not like machismo, but he still has a lot of those, I think, male insecurities about masculinity within him, and then also within his gay son. So
my dad is super machismo. Like, from when I could remember, any phone call that I got never asked me more about things of myself. He'd be like, how many girlfriends do you have? I just remember that being a vivid question over and over again, every single time I talked to him over the phone. And I didn't even come out to my dad until like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And that was because it was a random phone call. And at this point, he was the only person that I kind of didn't know. And I didn't want to tell him until like he's a part of my life and he has the right to know. Like, not that I'm hiding it, but like the people who I care about, no.
Yeah.
And if you're not in my life, if you find out through something else, sure, perfect. I don't care. But I'm not going to tell you. If you want to ask me about my personal life, I'll tell you. And he asked me again, oh, you seeing anybody, any girls, blah, blah, blah. How many do you have? And I'm like, dude, like, you're not asking me about my job. You're not asking me about my career, my passions, not any of this stuff. You're asking me about how much am I getting?
Yeah.
And like, hello, pick up the signs here. I've been single for so long. Like, that's not a reality for me.
Yeah.
And I told him, and he hasn't talked to me since. So maybe that's all it took.
When I was younger, my dad, I think, really wanted me to play sports, follow in his footsteps and play baseball, softball. And I just had no interest in it. And he also knew a lot about fixing things around the house. I just didn't have any interest in that. And I think that he never really said anything to me about it, and he didn't like pressure me into playing sports or doing anything that I didn't necessarily want to do. But I always felt like he was a little disappointed in me, and not necessarily not following his footsteps, but not just being a little more manly.
Yeah.
So that was really hard, and I think that that's what started a bit of a divide between me and him. And obviously you have a similar divide between you and your dad, because you were approaching your life a certain way. I was approaching my life a certain way, and it didn't fit their expectations for us as their sons, but also just us as men.
So did you ever feel less of a man because of it?
I felt a bit of a disappointment as a son.
Okay.
But it didn't make me feel less of a man. As I was questioning my sexuality growing up, as I was coming to terms with who I was just struggling to think of myself as a man, period. I was afraid of a lot of the world. I was scared to explore and adventure out. And I felt like that was one of the crucial elements of a man, is like somebody who's just going to go out there and just grab the world by the cojones and, do what they need to do, what they want to do. And that wasn't who I was. I was very timid. And for a long time, I would never refer to myself as a man. I would just call myself a guy. Obviously there's a point where you're a boy and then you transition out of boyhood. And by the way, any guys who are on dating apps, gay guys particularly, if you're calling yourself a boy, particularly if it's a BOI boy, please change that. I don't care if you're more submissive, if you're the bottom, if you're in your 30s, please don't call yourself a boy.
You're saying this, but since I have 30-year-old men,
yeah,
I'm their daddy. If that makes sense.
Yeah, of course, and I get the power dynamic is there, but it is for me personally, it's an odd thing because I struggled so much becoming what I felt like what a man was, that I wasn't a boy anymore, but I wasn't a man, so I just called myself a guy. Like into my 20s, my late 20s, and I don't even think it was in my 30s that I felt like, oh, okay, I'm a man now.
Well, did you have a moment where it was like, okay, I feel like a man?
Yeah, and
whatever that means to you,
right? It was after my big breakup, after I was with the person I was with for over a decade, and I had relied so heavily on that person for a lot of things, particularly just emotional support, although the emotional support was so minimal. But sometimes just having someone there in your life makes you feel more safe and secure. Mm-hmm. And that's what he provided for me, unintentionally perhaps. But afterwards, I had to do it myself. And so for me, becoming a man was really standing on my own 2 feet. And that's not to say that a man can't rely on other people, whether it's a spouse or a friend or parents, whomever. But for me, I just felt more confident in myself and my own capabilities after I was on my own. I had to start from scratch again. I started my own business. I built up my savings again, found a place to live, and reestablished my dating. And all of a sudden, I turned around. And of course, this took place over the course of several months, a year or so. All of a sudden, I turned around. I was like, oh, like I am a capable adult. I am a man now. And it was the first time in my, I guess, late 30s that I actually felt like I could call myself a man, which is just insane to me that it took me that long into my life to feel this way.
So like last year.
Yeah, late 30s, last year. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. How about you?
Mine was very different.
Yeah.
I felt like a man at the age of like 7 or 8.
Yeah.
And even though I was obviously a boy, since being the only boy in the house, my sisters, they did great to maybe not boost my ego, but definitely let me know what role is mine in this house. And like up to a very young age, they definitely like, well, you're the man of the house. You have to do X, Y, and Z. You have to do this, and that. You have to mow the lawn. You have to take out the trash. You have to take care of us.
Yeah.
And taking care of them was different in a way. It was more like, just don't hurt their feelings.
Right.
Because there was more problems that would happen where I was younger and my sisters would get into conflict with other men or stuff that was not suitable. And I would feel down on myself that I am the man of the house and I can't do anything about it because one, I'm still a kid.
Yeah.
But I'd get fueled by these things a little bit and feel very conflicted with myself. Like, I'm the one who's supposed to be taking care of you. I mean, it should be their dads. Yeah. But it's me. Like, I'm what you have. And now my mindset has still stayed the same, but now it's in a different way. Like, my goal is to still take care of my family. Like, when I am able to. Yeah. I want to take care of all of them because they've taken care of me. And they've been through so much that I couldn't do stuff for them when I needed to. And now I'm doing things for myself, but also for them.
Yeah.
So I don't think I've ever felt less of a man. Even with all my femininity, like growing up, I've never questioned my manlyhood or anything. Even dabbling into what I need to feel more masculine, I still felt like a man. That was never downplayed for me in my mindset, at least.
Yeah. And they actually used the words, you're the man of the house. Yeah. Did you ever do something as a child that this is something a man would do, like in your younger years, and maybe caught your family off guard that, oh, this is our little man?
No. No, I don't think so. It was more just like chores that
Yeah.
they would push out to me and be like, "You have to do it. You're the man." Like
Right.
that aspect. I don't
Gotcha.
think I never did anything where it was like, "Oh, he's a man." Now in
Yeah.
my adulthood, for sure. Now
Yeah.
I do bring a certain comfort that
Right.
my sisters need that sometimes they haven't been able to open up to with a man before, and
Right.
now I have like a sense of security for them. At least I feel that way, and I hope they feel that way too. Growing up, it was difficult. We would definitely butt heads a lot, but now there is a lot more welcoming energy towards me and
Yeah.
my manlyhood and my femininity that I still have.
Right. Yeah, I know you've been a source of strength for your family for as they've gone through relationship issues or just issues in general. You live a little bit away from your family,
Yeah.
but I know when things have come up in the past, you're like, okay, I'll be there tomorrow or later tonight and we're going to talk this through or bring that person in. I'm going to have a conversation with them and you step up to the plate, which I think is what a lot of people think of as a man, as someone who steps up and helps out where they can, particularly the people like family who are important to them.
And the thing is, I've had to put all that together. I didn't get what it meant to be a man by seeing what it meant to be a man. I got what it meant to be a man by seeing what was missing in our life that I knew that a man was supposed to provide. Most of the people that I know in relationships, married, older, from my family or people in my culture, it's very rare where we see a successful marriage that's lasting and is happy and is well balanced and empathetic and understanding of one another and bending to meet in the middle, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's very rare that happens. It's always a dominant role and everyone else just does whatever needs to be done to make it happen because they're providing everything, quote unquote. And when we don't have a man to provide anything, my mom's been working nonstop for hours and hours and hours. There'd be times where I wouldn't see her for most of the days, sometimes barely in the night. And my sisters would be watching us nonstop and just passing me to my other sister or whatever. We're all taking care of each other.
Yeah.
But there's never been a man to provide meals, even though my dad would send money occasionally. What's that going to do? Nothing really. My mom's just catching up from whatever you've been lacking.
Yeah.
And I had to learn all those things by myself. I still feel like I need to provide for my family. And when I do, I will then feel like the best man I can be. Up until then, I don't think I'll be able to get there.
Yeah, it's just so fascinating what polar opposites we had with experiences with men, and
I've had to fill in the blank, and they've been writing it down for you.
Yeah,
Is the difference.
Well, and the problem with the writing down for me is that when you're young, especially as naive as I was growing up, you just take everything at face value. And my parents are very religious, and so we were at church every Sunday night, every Wednesday night. So if the doors were open at church, we were there.
Yeah.
And so not only was my dad a male role model for me, but there were a lot of people in the church, which was only led by men. Women might teach like classes for younger kids, whatever, but this was a male dominated.
Yeah.
As a lot of religions, of course, are. They primarily had friends within the church, so I had friends of the kids that they were there, so I would spend the night at friends' houses. We'd have people over for Sunday dinner or whatever. So we got to know a lot of the people within our church, as I think most people do who go to church regularly.
Yeah, for sure.
And as I got older and saw the men for who they really were, the magic kind of faded away, and I saw people leave their spouses and cheat and do all of these different things, not just within their spousal relationships, but just in general. And the wool was kind of removed from my eyes as to what a man is. I had this kind of fantasy growing up about what a man is, and then it was kind of revealed to me like these people can be a little hypocritical. I don't want to say that of everybody who goes to a church.
I mean, I've had some great examples that I've met at church that are in relationships and stuff when I was in my teens and going to youth and stuff. But it would always be a back and forth. Like, yeah, there might be showing this, but then they're still preaching something negative. And it's like, where do I get the qualities of a man that isn't preaching negativity, but also caring for their family and for their loved ones in a genuine way? And instead of like, I'm the boss kind of way.
Yeah.
And finding that balance is difficult. Honestly, at that point when I was going to church and seeing all those men and it was getting even more confusing, I would just help out at the nursery. And that's where I felt more of a man, because I'm like taking care of kids and like helping people and like.
Yeah, you're actually lifting up as opposed to just talking about lifting up. So, you talk about negative aspects. We talked about negative aspects of men. What do you think are an example of traits that people think of when they think that's what a man is, that are actually not great? They may even be toxic.
The number one and the bullet board for everybody is probably don't cry. Don't show emotion. If anything, I want to see you cry. I want to see you show emotion, so I know that you're not showing me something that is false. What if like, I don't want you to hold it all together and then someday just break and snap with anger or whatever it is because you're holding in sadness. I'd rather you just fully express yourself, feel what you're feeling, and embrace it instead of not.
I remember this several times. And, our parents are often just products of their own upbringing and their own times. But I remember my dad saying, when I was crying about something, stop crying or I'll give you a reason to cry.
Oh, yeah. So common.
And yeah. And like I said before, he was the kind of person who did not embrace his emotions, who didn't know how to embrace his emotions. No one taught him how to do this, especially not his father.
For sure.
But I see the embracing of emotions as actually a strength. And I know a lot of men see it as a weakness, but I think it takes a lot of strength of character to show how you're feeling in a positive way. And that can mean anger, it can mean sadness, it can, any of these quote unquote negative emotions, like we can channel those in a positive way. And I think it shows real strength of character when a man can embrace those things and acknowledge, because we all have these feelings inside of us. Burying them down deeper, as you said before, it will only lead to problems down the line. And it could lead to actual physical health problems when you don't face your emotions. So that's not strength. That's actually a weakness, in my opinion, when you can't face your emotions and share your emotions. And it's also this ability to connect, because we all have these emotions. And for your son, your children to know, oh, I'm feeling sad in this moment. And it's okay to feel sad, because guess what? You're going to feel sad at some point in your life.
Multiple times, more than likely.
So one, learn how to feel the emotion. But two, and this is the more important part, is how do you handle the emotion? Because if no one is showing you, if your father, especially as a father to a son, if he isn't showing you, you're going to feel this way, and this is how you can deal with it in a positive manner, then you're just going down a negative path yourself.
And for the example of my father, I wouldn't see him often. And he's my dad. My mom would, if he were to come visit from out of town or whatever, my mom would let us spend time with him and have a date with him out. But for me, this man hasn't been around, and now he's trying to boss me around and tell me what's up and discipline me and like hit me when he needs to hit me. It's like, if anything, I'm getting more resentment at that point than anything. And whatever you're feeling and not even knowing how to handle me is even more wild. And you're just going to react a certain way, whether that's anger or disappointment or uncomfortable, whatever it is. You're reacting a certain way, but you honestly don't even know your child. So how are we reacting?
Yeah. That ties into one of my characteristics of a man, a traditional characteristic that I think is actually toxic, and that is control. Like you have to be in control all the time, which can deal with emotions, but it can deal with a lot of other things too. And the idea that you need to be able to stamp down anything else that's going on around you, from family issues to job insecurities. Just the idea that you are in control of your home, your environment, your family is just an insane idea to me, because ultimately we all want to feel in control, obviously, and our emotions can spin out of control when we don't feel in control. But ultimately, the only thing that we have control over is how we react to situations. So the idea that a man is in control, unless they're talking about how they control their responses to things, is just completely insane. Nobody has control over anything. Now, if you're faced with a tough situation and you face it in a positive manner, and you just continue to bring love and light to the people in your world despite all the adversities that come your way, that's control. And that's the only kind of control that I want to be showing in my life to the people who matter to me.
Yeah. Another one that I think is a traditional outlook on what a man is supposed to be, like physically active or strong.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very toxic, in my opinion, because not everyone is into fitness. Not everyone is physically active. Should you be? For sure. You should definitely like take a walk, do something, be engaging your body with movement, because movement is nice for you. Not specifically like you need to lift weights to be a man, or you need to be strong or have muscle, because those are all just qualities of what people like and not of who you are and what represents being a man.
For sure. Yeah, there's this physical component of being a man that we as gay men, men in general, I should say, we're very physically oriented creatures. And we see something and there's an attraction there. So I think we as gay men particularly have it hard because we're looking for something that we're often trying to find in ourselves. And I remember as a teenager growing up, my dad had a hairy chest. I do not have a hairy chest. I did not get that from my father. And part of me was like, that's what a man is supposed to have. And then he's tall, a little taller than me and a little bigger built than me. I definitely get my frame from my mom's side of the family. Because I was also gay, I would get like workout magazines because I was interested in physical fitness. I did want to build myself up, but it was for a variety of reasons. And it wasn't for the idea of, which is why I work out now, to just be healthy and to, take care of yourself because you only got this one body. And I would try to work out to make myself more appealing to other people, but also to become a man.
Yeah. I personally have never thought of men characteristics coming from physicality.
Yeah.
I've always thought men qualities, being a man, is a mindset and more of actions than you do physically.
Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting difference.
It is. It is.
I never thought, I need to lift weights to be more manly. Yeah. I've seen it happen with a lot of people, but I've never been that person. I've always been like, what traits am I doing? Oh, that's a man. That man is taking care of his kids. He's providing in a way where you're balancing with your partner. Because just because you're a man doesn't mean you have to be the breadwinner or the head of household. And some people think that that's the case. Some people think that, that's the man. He needs to pay for everything. He needs to, which to each his own. Sometimes if that's the life that you want to do, sure. But that's not normal for everybody.
Right.
The man doesn't have to be in charge of the house and pay for everything. A lot of people like to balance things out nowadays.
For sure. And that speaks to like one of my last characteristics that come to mind. And that's that a lot of people think that being a man is being in power. And that's a little different from being in control. Being in power means head of household, paying all the bills or the majority of the bills. When I was growing up, it was paying all the bills. Yeah. And I think that religion, particularly Christian religion, has really bred that into a lot of people and has given men this this notion that because the Bible said, just like Jesus is the head of the church, husbands are the head of the house, something along those lines. And they've taken that and run with it. I saw that power dynamic in my parents, and it was something that my mom fed into very easily. She was very happy, like I said earlier, to be the happy homemaker. Yeah. But it always bothered me that as we were at the dinner table and eating and he ran out of whatever he was drinking, my mom would just get up immediately and go get the sweet tea and pour it for him and whatever. I'm like, he's a capable adult. Like he can get up and go get it. And he has placed himself in this position of power. I should say society has placed him in that because he's a product of his time. Yes. And he has this role of power. And it always bothered me because in my mind, my mom was the stronger person in our house.
Same.
I know for you,
that's a fact. I mean, my mom, the normal thing for them growing up, at the age of 16, you're not going to high school. That's when you're like meeting someone and starting your family and going for it back in the day. And that I could see my mom in our life try to be that woman that like she's in a relationship and supporting and doing this, but she's not that type of girl to like let you do something, and she'll try her hardest, and sometimes it's worse for her to like stay in it and be like, no, I'm fine and all that. And she would try so hard. And now with us kids, we tend to see those things where it's like, no, we're not dealing with that. We're not going to fall into the same pattern of letting these men be in control, quote unquote, or in power for whatever reason, us be the supporter that they need to be whoever they want to be. Like it should be equal support no matter what. And feelings involved as well.
Yeah.
So different dynamics.
Yes, very different dynamics, but it speaks to the strength of women
Oh, yeah,
in our
women,
lives.
for sure.
100%. So what are some traits that you do think are very important in being a man?
Definitely empathetic, aware of his emotions, like able to. By empathetic, I mean like when someone is coming to you with a problem, you are going to be more sympathetic before you are reacting. So like maybe sympathize more before the reaction. Like understand where this is coming from, feel for them, and then react. And then you can have some curiosity with the questions of like, I hear you, I want to feel for you, I am feeling for you.
Yeah.
Where is this coming from? It's more like when someone is brought to them with emotions, they react and blow up sometimes. And it's like, why aren't you sympathizing where I'm coming from?
Yeah, it always fascinated me as a young adult, and even still today, how I think men particularly are guilty of this, but adults in general can be, how you forget what younger people go through. Yeah, you're older, but you're not so old you forgot what it was to be a kid. But it seems like a lot of men do exactly what you're saying, and that is they just react to a situation that they went through themselves and probably had a similar feeling. I'm like, where's the empathy here? And you're right. I think that that's a great trait for a man, is to find the empathy and to be able to connect, whether it's your child or your coworker or your spouse, particularly whoever it is. Like that's within all of us to find, and that makes you a man.
Yeah, there's several moments where I see this in straight culture where someone is feeling a little bit down and somebody just, instead of sympathizing with them, maybe it's a bro, they're like, quit that shit, blah, blah, blah. Like just pushing it to the side. And it's like, where, like, hello, he's feeling down. Where do you think the cut it off is going to come into play? Like, that's not a normal thing. Like, obviously, you can see that they're feeling low. I don't know why you think cutting off is going to be the right reaction.
Your generation and younger really fascinate me because it seems like there's two extremes going on here. One is that they are very in touch with each other's emotions and feelings. But then the other extreme is, and I see this on TikTok, where a guy and his girlfriend are talking and the guy shares with the girl that, oh, you know, my friend so-and-so, he broke up with his girlfriend. And she asks him, well, what happened? Like, oh, I don't know. I didn't ask. What do you mean you didn't ask? Do you not care about what your male friend is going through? Have some empathy. Like, he's obviously feeling something. He's not just turned his emotions off and everything's good. This man needs some help.
Definitely. So a man that can be empathetic to his bros, to his friends, to his girlies, whoever it is.
Yeah.
That's a man.
Absolutely.
Another one, or do you have one?
It ties in a little bit to that to a degree, and that's just being reliable.
Oh, yeah.
A man, in my opinion, does what he says he's going to do.
My other one was he supports you. So very much the same thing.
Yeah. I know I am very careful with making promises to people, because if I make a promise to you, I will deliver on it. And what I really like to do is under-promise and then over-deliver, particularly in a work environment. If I promise you something, I will deliver on it. Being dependable, reliable, I think it's a great trait for a human being in general, but I think it really speaks to being a man.
Yeah, a man is going to support you. Even if he has nothing else to give you, he's going to give you what he can.
Yeah.
For whatever it is to put you up even more. Because I feel like that is a good quality to have. And if he is willing to help you out with X, Y, and Z, building something, paying for something, you're struggling at the moment, whatever it is, he's there to comfort you. He's there for your accomplishments if you're pursuing specific things. Like all of those things, just supporting, that's a man.
That ties into another one of mine, which is strength. And I don't mean physical strength. I mean strength of character.
Yeah.
He is going to be there to support you through whatever you're going through.
I'm not saying like go to fumes. I'm not saying like gas yourself to please somebody, but...
Yeah, but you step up when you can step up. And you know, this is a philosophy that you and I share, and that we have enacted in this house and the other house that we shared. If we can help somebody, we're going to help somebody.
Yeah.
And that has meant at times giving people a place to live and taking care of cute little puppies for the night. But also strength of allowing other people to shine. I think it really shows a strong
Yes.
person when you can step out of the spotlight for a minute and let your significant other, your kids, your bros, whoever it is, shine for a minute.
There were so many adorable moments in the Olympics where girls are like competing their heart out and the men are just there like,
Yes.
let's
Yeah.
go, hyping them up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, ugh, that
Yes.
right there in everything stapled, please.
Right. Right. And I can see where some old school men would look at that and be like, oh, they are pee-whipped.
Yep.
Like, what are you talking about? That is a strong man right there who can give his heart and his support to someone who means
Yeah.
the world to him.
So for me, it was empathetic, supports you. And the other one that is most important to me is self-aware. Like, a lot of men are not self-aware.
No.
A lot of men don't even know that they're being dog-eyed by a lot of people from being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? From them saying something and people being like, what? They don't even know.
Yeah.
So when a man can actually acknowledge his behaviors, his actions, his wrongdoings, like that right there is great. And when you can bring something to them and be like, hey, this is what I'm feeling and this is something that I've encountered. And then they're like, they sit back and acknowledge it. And I'm like, oh, I mean, it hasn't happened. But that would be a good moment. To me, that is a self-aware man.
Yeah. Men have been given free reign for so long, particularly straight white men. But men in general have been given free reign for so long that they often aren't self-aware because they haven't had to be self-aware because no one is calling them out on their BS. And it's so refreshing to be with someone who can take feedback and to almost immediately like compute it and recognize, oh, wait, yeah, I have been doing that. Wow, it's a manly quality. It's an adult quality, but wow, that really shines as a man.
Well, I mean, most men are kids till.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Like I said, into my late 30s, I was saying I wasn't a man. So my last big one is honesty. And it can be hard to be honest about a lot of topics. I mean, some topics are really difficult to discuss, and because men oftentimes want to bury things down, especially things that are difficult, and to bring those up and to have an honest conversation with people, it's hard to do, and it does require strength and strength of character. It's such a manly thing to be able to be honest with someone and to be honest about who I am and what I need and what I want out of whatever the situation is. Honesty, just the absolute best.
Totally agree. Well, I would like to say that we've come to the conclusion that a man who is, in our eyes, a man is going to be empathetic. He is going to support you. He's going to be self-aware. He's going to be honest.
Yes.
And he's going to pull up.
Yeah. Reliable, dependable, be there. Absolutely. What great characteristics of anyone.
So if you're a man and you aren't, or you're calling yourself a man and you aren't playing into those traits, then there might be some self-aware we got to work on.
Right.
Or self-reflecting that we got to work on.
Right. But if you are a man and you meet all those characteristics,
Hit us up.
yep. Yep.
Right here, please. I'll support you. I'll reciprocate the same things I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it is hard to be a man and it's hard to be a person in this life. But if you can hone in on those characteristics, I feel like life will be easier once you do the hard work, because you are going to attract a lot of positivity into your life. You're going to attract a lot of positive people into your life because people love those qualities. People are attracted to those qualities. So put in the hard work, be a man.
And physicality doesn't make you a man or a daddy. It's a mindset.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
It is a
Absolutely.
mindset.
Because as you said before, you're a short king, daddy.
I am. And I'm young, but like,
And
don't get me wrong, the older men, not that I'm sleeping around or doing anything, but when I do, it tends to fall into that category of older men.
And they're usually taller and bigger and beefier
And they're still baby.
and yeah, and you are the man.
Yeah. I mean, they're pretty manly too, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. We're going to practice on being better men.
Yes. Every day.
Yeah.
Even if you think you're the best, keep practicing to be better.
Yeah, if you think you're the best, then you still have a lot of work to do. So throw that mindset out
Yep.
and just keep putting in the work. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you for being a man, a good man in my life. And thanks to our audience for joining us today.
Thank y'all.
Like, follow, subscribe, comment, and we'll see you next week.
Love you.